Welcome to Rebecca's Renaissance, the podcast. Hey gang, thanks for joining me again for another episode of Rebecca's Renaissance, the podcast. This podcast was really born of the efforts I've been making in the past 9 years or so to improve my health and my overall wellness. And I hope that you're finding benefit from some of the information that I'm bringing forward. I have researched loads of topics. I continue to research topics every day that come up that seem to be affecting my health, that I hear about from friends, family, followers. And I also just love to learn about these things and make even small changes to positively affect my health. So I hope that you're finding this information helpful. And if you have suggestions, feel free to reach out to me. You can find my contact information on my site, which is rebeccasren.wordpress.com. That's REBECCASREN.wordpress.com. Just go to the contact page, or I think it's an about page, and you'll have some ways you can reach out to me so that I can see it. It seems like fat has been a topic my whole life, and I'm talking about dietary fats. I first heard it mentioned specifically by my grandparents when they were shifting to a low-fat diet in order to kind of attempt to lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, and basically not die. Okay? At that time, we thought all fats were bad. Nowadays, we actually know differently than that. And as I mentioned in my recent inflammation podcast episode, which you can also find out on my WordPress site or on Spotify or on Google Casts or on Anchor, there are actually good fats. And that's what I want to talk about today, good fats. So hang in there and we will learn all about good fats, what they do for you, and where to find them. As it turns out, there are actually bad fats, yes, but there are also good fats that you actually do want in your diet. And that's what I want to talk about. Fat is basically a nutrient, just like protein and carbs. So your body does need some fat for energy, to absorb vitamins, and also to protect your heart and your brain. So those are some pretty key things. It's kind of important to be aware that your body does actually need fat. You don't want to cut it all out. So which ones are the good ones? Well, I'm glad you asked because I do have a list of them here and some information about them. So monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats are known as the good fats. And you can't see my air quotes, but I'm doing air quotes because I'm that dated. Good fats, because they are good for your heart, they're good for your cholesterol, and overall, they're just very good for your health. These good fats, your friendly fats, can lower the risk of heart disease and stroke. They can lower your bad cholesterol levels while increasing your good cholesterol levels. So if you didn't know, there are actually good and bad cholesterol levels in your cholesterol number that you get from your doctor. So check that out. Good fats or friendly fats can prevent abnormal heart rhythms. They can also lower triglycerides, lower blood pressure, and fight inflammation, which is where we got the tie into the previous inflammation podcast episode. They also, really importantly, prevent the hardening and narrowing of the arteries. So in addition to a buildup of cholesterol, people with heart disease will often have their artery walls will have become hardened, and then the arteries will have narrowed. And so all of this constricts blood flow and affects how your heart pumps and gets blood out to everywhere in your body. So really critical stuff here that we're talking about. And unfortunately, these are some things where, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. Because if you're watching these things now and taking care of this now, you can actually prevent really serious health concerns down the road that are hard to recover from, okay? You can prevent serious cardiovascular disease. You can prevent, like we're saying here, heart attacks, strokes, all kinds of things. Not only is a recovery from those sorts of things really challenging, but then you'd still end up changing your diet, changing your behaviors, becoming more active. And those are always going to be challenging, whether it's now while you're choosing it on purpose or later when you're choosing those changes because you have no other choice. It's either die or change. So that's why I like to look at these sorts of things. Okay, so check out the show notes because I have a list of myths about good fats. And I also have an infographic out on my site that you can check out. Again, that site is rebeccaswren.wordpress.com. So it has a little display here of good fats and bad fats. Now, one thing I will say is things like corn oil and soybean oil, there is some newer data to suggest maybe those aren't good fats. So that's why I did choose this graphic. I figure err on the side of caution, avoid the things we're thinking are probably bad for our hearts, and stick with things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, salmon, and coconuts. So we'll come to that in a little more detail here. I have a list, 10 high-fat foods that are actually really healthy for you. I like this article because it talks about the fact that once fat became demonized, people actually started eating more sugar, more refined carbs, and more processed foods because all of those things had to be done to natural food in order to make it still have a nice consistency or taste good like the full fat versions of those foods. And so while we've been trying to help ourselves in one way, we've actually created other problems, okay? So now that we know that saturated fat isn't completely the devil that we thought it was, saturated fats are bad, but unsaturated fats are good. Okay, so the 10 foods that are actually incredibly healthy and nutritious for you. Number 1, avocados. Now, this is technically a fruit, and it is technically 77% fat. So by calories is really high in fat, but these are not like animal fats. They are actually good for you. Avocados are also one of the best sources of potassium in the diet, containing 40% more potassium than bananas. Wow, that's a lot. They're also a great source of fiber, which again can lower LDL cholesterol and triglycerides and raise HDL, which is the good cholesterol. Okay, number 2, cheese. Cheese is actually very nutritious. It kind of makes sense that an entire cup of milk is used to produce a single thick slice of cheese. So if milk is good for you and the ways in which milk is good for you, cheese is also good for you. It's a good source of calcium, vitamin B12, phosphorus, and selenium, and it contains a whole boatload of nutrients. It's also very rich in protein, 6.7 grams of protein actually. Also contains some fatty acids that have been linked to all sorts of benefits, including reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes. So cheese, worth checking out. Number 3, dark chocolate. You guys know from previous episodes that I love dark chocolate. It is very high in fat. At around 65% of its calories are from fat, but it also has fiber, iron, magnesium, copper, and manganese. It's loaded with antioxidants. I mean, it even has more antioxidants than blueberries, which you hear a lot about. So these, again, lower blood pressure, protect LDL cholesterol from becoming oxidized. Studies show that people who eat dark chocolate 5 or more times per week are less than half as likely to die from heart disease compared to people who don't eat dark chocolate. So with this, I would say substitute some dark chocolate for one of your snacks or treats throughout the week. Because there are studies that show that dark chocolate can improve your brain function, protect your skin, and it's just a powerhouse. So one caveat here is to make sure you choose quality dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao. All right, number 4, whole eggs. Eggs, again, were kind of victims of the high-fat diet thing. They were considered unhealthy because the yolks are high in cholesterol and fat, but actually studies show that the cholesterol in eggs don't actually affect the cholesterol in your blood. So we have a really nutrient-dense food here that's really good for you. They're loaded with vitamins and minerals. They contain almost every single nutrient we need. And they also contain powerful antioxidants that protect the eyes and brain. They're also very filling because they're high in protein. And so despite being high in fat, people who replace a grain-based breakfast with eggs end up actually eating fewer calories throughout a day and can find that very helpful if you're looking for weight loss options. Swapping out some grains for some eggs can help out with that. Fish. I've mentioned fatty fish before because fatty fish was on our low inflammation diet list. Fish like salmon, trout, mackerel, sardines, and herring, including albacore tuna, these are all really rich with heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. They have high-quality proteins and just really all sorts of nutrients. Increasing your consumption of fatty fish is super good for you because that is an excellent fat. Number 6 is nuts. Nuts are high in healthy fats and fiber. This again is a plant-based source of protein. And they also are high in vitamin E and loaded with magnesium. So since we don't typically get a lot of that, it's a great way to supplement your diet. Studies show that people who eat nuts tend to be healthier and have a lower risk of various diseases such as obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and more. So again, swapping out one of your current snacks for some nuts on a daily basis, really good for you. Number 7, chia seeds. These are not really perceived as a fatty food. However, an ounce of chia seeds contains 9 grams of fat. In fact, they're about 80% fat. So it's a really high fat food. But here again, chia seeds are a plant-based fat. So most of the fats in chia seeds consist of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. They also have benefits like lowering blood pressure. They also have anti-inflammatory effects, which is interesting because I didn't find chia seeds on my anti-inflammation diet list that I shared with you guys in that previous episode. So chia seeds, excellent for you. Number 8, extra virgin olive oil. This is something that's widely agreed upon as being healthy. And that's why I do support it as a cooking oil when you can use it, because everybody thinks it's good for you. So why use an oil that's being debated if you can use an oil that we all agree is pretty good? So this contains vitamins E and K. It's loaded with powerful antioxidants. Again, it lowers blood pressure, improves cholesterol markers, and it has all other sorts of benefits that are related to heart disease risks. So definitely worth checking out. Extra virgin olive oil is kind of the way to go with that. Number 9, we got 2 left here. Coconuts and coconut oil. It is the richest source of saturated fat on the planet. 90% of the fatty acids in them are saturated. So that's a lot of gobbledygook to basically say coconut fats are different than most fats and are just really fantastic for you and how they are metabolized in your body. They go straight to your liver instead of being digested in other ways. And so therefore they suppress your appetite and help you eat fewer calories. Coconuts and coconut oil can boost your metabolism. I didn't know that until I read this. And then many studies show that these types of fats have benefits for people with Alzheimer's and can help you lose belly fat. So coconuts, coconut oil, super way to go. And finally, number 10 on the list, full fat yogurt is actually really incredibly fat. It's kind of has all the same nutrients as other high fat dairy products that we've been talking about on this list, but it also contains a probiotic that has great effects on gut health and digestive health. So that can help you fight disease and obesity. Make sure that you read yogurt labels carefully though, because lots of yogurts have loads of sugar added into them. And if you're eating the kind of yogurt that has a boatload of sugar added to it to make it a little more, friendly to your palate, you're kind of undoing the health benefit because sugar is actually really terrible for you. So just be cautious about that and maybe instead mix in a fruit or, some nuts or something, and to eat your full fat yogurt in a very positive way. So that's all I have for you. Again, show notes will contain links to these articles and also the infographic that I have for you. But again, fats are not necessarily bad for you. There are lots of good fats. These are 10 of them. Feel free to check that out. And again, I recommend anytime that I give you any information, I am no expert, so please do research of your own. Rely on the trusted resources to give you good information about your nutrition and diet so that you too can have your own renaissance. Thank you. Be well.